Hi there, and welcome to this lesson series on commonly used English expressions. Language learners just love expressions because they make us feel that we really understand the language, and also because sometimes they make no sense whatsoever when you look at each word individually. Now, you may have heard other terms such as simile, idiom, figure of speech, and metaphor, and are wondering what the difference is between them. Well, there are some grammatically different definitions for them, but you do not need to worry about them, and it is definitely not the purpose of this lesson series to explain them. You can think of them as all types of expressions, and that's it. I am not going to categorize them here because there is absolutely no benefit to that. So let's get stuck in and learn some amazing new expressions in common use in English. So the very first expression we're going to look at is probably my favorite expression in English. I have many that I like, but this is definitely my favorite. And it is the elephant in the room. Do not confuse it with bull in a china shop, as many of my students do. They are not related. So what does it mean? Well, imagine you are in a meeting or with family or with friends, and you are all talking, but there is an elephant in the room and nobody mentions the elephant. Everyone knows it's there, obviously. It's an elephant after all, and it's in a room, and it's not normal to have an elephant in a room. Well, we use this expression, elephant in the room, when there is a subject that everyone there is aware of, but nobody wants to talk about it. Perhaps it's because that subject is too sensitive or controversial, or might cause embarrassment to someone in the room. Let me give you some examples. You work for a big company and they have let go many of your colleagues in the past few days because the business is having problems. But nobody from senior management has made any communication to the employees about the problems or the people being let go. Now the CEO calls a meeting and talks about the normal things they talk about in these meetings, but they don't say anything about the problems or the people who have been let go. In this case, there is an elephant in the room, and that elephant is that you might lose your job also. We can use it in situations with family and friends. Last week we were at Joe's birthday party, but nobody mentioned the elephant in the room. You see, Joe was arrested by the police the previous week for financial fraud and embezzlement. So obviously nobody wanted to talk about it. We just pretended everything was normal. This next one is also about an elephant, but it has absolutely nothing to do with the previous expression. This is a white elephant, and it has a very specific meaning, which is quite easy to explain and use. It is a project, often some type of construction project, in which a lot of money has been spent and has all been wasted because that construction is not being utilized or is being greatly underutilized. Examples in Spain, where I live, are the airports in Castellón and Ciudad Real are perfect examples of white elephants. They were built at huge cost and now sit there unused or underused and can be seen every day to remind us of the waste of money. Those airports are white elephants. To jump through hoops. This expression means to complete a complicated or an annoying series of steps in order to get something done. So for example, they made me jump through hoops to get a visa to visit Peru. I had to write to the embassy, then visit them, then get more forms to fill out, and then wait a few weeks only to have to go back to the embassy again, etc., etc. The inference is always that this process could be made simpler. Other sentences might be, we had to jump through hoops to get our daughter into that school. It was a nightmare. It feels like our boss just wants us to jump through hoops with all the unnecessary communications we have to follow. The origin of the expression comes from the circus, where animals have to jump through hoops when they're performing. A somewhat related expression is to bend over backwards. It's not quite the same as jump through hoops in all contexts. Let me explain. So when human beings bend, we can only bend forwards like this. We cannot bend backwards. Well, at least I can't. Some people can. So in general, bending over backwards is almost impossible and requires a lot of extra effort and work. If we bend over backwards to do something, it means that we put in a lot of extra effort to try to achieve something. A common context to use this expression is when we make that extra effort for someone else. If you made a big effort to get someone tickets for a concert, for example, you can say, I bent over backwards for them. This is often used when you do this and they don't appreciate it or even complain. I bent over backwards to get those tickets for her, and all she did was complain about the price. You could use jump through hoops in this sentence either, and another very similar expression is to pull out all the stops, which could also be used here. I pulled out all the stops to get her those tickets, which expresses that you had to use all your resources to achieve it. When doing administration work, we say things like dot all the I's and cross your T's, which means to make sure that everything is done properly. We can use it in contexts that don't relate to administration, but I suggest you just use it in this context. To dot your I's is this action, and to cross your T's is this one. In other words, make sure all the paperwork is correct. If you are sending in an application to a university to do a course, it might be very important that everything is done correctly with the documentation, or your application might be rejected. Therefore, it would be very important for you to dot all your I's and cross all your T's. Let's move on to a completely different type of expression. To make a hames of something means to completely mess it up or to do a bad job of it. Last night I was making a lasagna for dinner. I made a complete hames of it. I forgot to put the bechamel sauce on it. That's not true, by the way. I always make great lasagna, but you get the idea. Don't ask him to wash the car. He'll make a hames of it, as he always does. You can use this expression in almost any context. Now, there is another expression that can be used in the exact same way, and that is to make a pig's ear of it. They are both the same. I've made a pig's ear of this lesson, so I'm going to start it again. Almost the opposite to the previous expression is to make a fist of it. It is usually used with an adjective such as good or decent. It means to make a good attempt at something, even though it may not be perfect. Last night was my first attempt at making paella, and I think I made a decent fist of it. People seem to like it. She made a good fist of speaking in French in the meeting, even though she had only been learning it for a few months. Now you can use it with bad or terrible to have the opposite meaning. I made a terrible fist of baking that cake, but I hate baking anyway. I'm never doing it again. This, by the way, is a fist, a closed hand. Don't ask me the origin of this expression. Many expressions are of unknown or disputed origin. As always, if you're liking these lessons on expressions, then please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. It helps me a lot, and the more likes and subscriptions, the more lessons I will do. A cowboy or a cowboy job is the next one. So we use these terms when we hire someone to do a job and they make a hames of it. See previous expression. But the difference is we normally use it in the context of professional people. So for example, if you bring your car to the garage and they don't fix it properly or cause other problems, you can say they are cowboys in that garage, or they did a cowboy job. That mechanic is a cowboy. That plumber left a mess with holes in the wall after he fixed the leak. What a cowboy. I'm never getting him again. Chapucero in Spanish. By the way, there is a general word in English for professionals in such as plumbers, builders, electricians, carpenters, etc. Do you know what it is? It's tradespeople, or a tradesperson, tradesman, tradeswoman. If you're in a large DIY store, you may see a counter marked trade. That refers to customers who are in the trade and will require invoices. This next expression comes from the world of theatre, and it is to be in the limelight. Sometimes you might hear spotlight instead of limelight, but it is the same expression. The expression means to be the focus of attention, and especially from the media. So celebrities, by their very definition, are always in the limelight. The media focus is on them. It can apply to anyone, including non-celebrities, but the context usually relates to some media involvement. My sister was on TV last week for the first time, talking about her charity work. She seems to like being in the limelight because she wants to do it again. Up next, we have the whole 9 yards, or the full 9 yards. In one word, this means everything, but you're going to need some context for common usage. Let's say you are going to organize a hotel for you and a friend or partner, and you decide to get the best suite with all the extras and go to the best restaurants, etc. Then you could say you are going the whole 9 yards this weekend. You could also say you are having the works, meaning that everything that is available, you are going to have it, or you're going to avail of it. If you are hiking in the mountains and you do all the most difficult routes when there were other easier alternatives, you could say you did the whole 9 yards. There's a movie called The Whole 9 Yards with Bruce Willis and Matthew Perry, but I don't think it's very good. The next one is the real McCoy. Now, McCoy is a surname in English. You'd imagine it would be easy to find the origins of this expression. Well, it's not, and there are many different versions of it, but I think it's safe to say that McCoy was a real person. We use the real McCoy when we want to express that something or someone is genuine compared to all other products of less quality. So for example, if you have 2 knives and one couldn't cut butter, which is another expression, this knife couldn't cut butter, and the other is made of the finest steel, then you would say that knife is the real McCoy, the one that's made of steel. You can say it about a person also. She is the real McCoy could be said if she is really good at her job and you have problems finding the right person for that job. I love this next expression and use it a lot myself, to throw a spanner in the works. So this is a spanner, just in case you didn't know. Works can refer to mechanical equipment that has moving parts, such as a car engine or a turbine or something like that. Now imagine you throw a spanner into those works with all those moving parts. What do you think would happen? Well, it would most likely cause damage and prevent the machine from working properly. In everyday language, we use it when someone or something says or does something that is going to negatively affect the plan or process that is happening or being discussed. So imagine you're in a meeting discussing a project and you introduce something like your funding for the project is going to be cut. Then you would be throwing a spanner in the works. It doesn't have to be in a business context. We can use it if we have personal plans. For example, the hotel where they are having their wedding reception closed last week. That has really thrown a spanner in the works. A somewhat related expression, but not quite the same, is to throw the cat among the pigeons. You can change the verb here from throw to put or set. It makes no difference. It is used when we say or do something that causes controversy, upset, or annoyance. If you can imagine a group of pigeons in a city square or park somewhere, and an angry cat suddenly appears, then the pigeons are not likely to be too pleased about it. They get upset and probably try to get out of there. Here's an example sentence. The bride's uncle really set the cat among the pigeons when he showed up drunk at the wedding. Someone can throw the cat among the pigeons deliberately in order to get a reaction, and it isn't necessarily a bad thing to do. Maybe provoking a reaction will achieve a positive result. I threw the cat among the pigeons in a meeting yesterday when I complained to my colleagues that we were not making enough progress on our project. This next one is normally used in a business context, and that is to be in the pipeline. This is a pipeline. It's used for industrial purposes and normally carries large volumes of water, gas, and oil. If you are wondering what the difference between this and a pipe is, well, a pipe is much smaller and is normally used in homes and other places where small volumes are carried. So if something is in the pipeline, then it means there are definite plans to do something in the future. A real life example, as of the date of making this video, is that Quentin Tarantino's 10th film is in the pipeline. It's not made yet, but there are definite plans in place. IKEA have opened a new store in my city, and another one is in the pipeline. We wouldn't really use this in a personal context. Whilst people will understand you if you say Caoimhín and Saoirse have one baby already and a second in the pipeline, it would sound a bit strange. You would simply say, and another on the way. Another expression with pipe, not pipeline, is a pipe dream. It has nothing to do with the previous expression. If something is a pipe dream, then it means that it is an idea or plan that is very ambitious and exciting, but in reality is almost impossible in whatever the context is. I would love to own a villa in Mallorca, but at the moment it's just a pipe dream. So that is it for part 1 of this mix of expressions. But before you go, I have an extra learning section at the end of this lesson, so make sure to check that out. Let me know in the comments which expressions you like best and you think you will be able to use soon. Maybe you have heard some of them before. Let me know. Why not write some of the expressions, put it in the comments, and hopefully I will get a chance to check it for you. Make sure that the context is clear though, so that I understand it fully. Click on the links in the description for more expressions, including expressions using food, parts of the body, sport, money, many types of animals, and a lot more. Si eres hispanohablante y quieres corregir los errores comunes que los hispanohablantes cometen en inglés, echa un vistazo a mi curso en Udemy, centrado únicamente en este tema. Haz clic en el enlace en la descripción y te llevará directamente al curso. De vez en cuando ofrezco promociones, así que compruebe si hay algún código de descuento. Si ya no es válido, envíame un mensaje y te enviaré uno nuevo. In this lesson, I used some other words that you may not be familiar with or may not use. Have a look at them and make sure you know their meanings, as it is all part of the learning process. When talking about jump through hoops, I used fill out. We fill out a form or an application. I also used daughter here, and note how it is pronounced. Daughter. It is not doctor. There is no k sound, and it has a long vowel sound. People will think you are saying doctor, medico, if you pronounce it incorrectly. Daughter. In bend over backwards, I used same than. No, I didn't use same than. It is never same than. I used same as. Every Spanish student I know says same than. This is incorrect. You are translating directly from Spanish, igual que. It is always same as. I used mess in make a hames of. This is a word that few students use, but it is very common. To make a mess means to do something that leaves a place disorganized or untidy. Yes, tidy is the opposite of messy, which is the adjective. You can make a mess like as in make a hames of something. In back to the drawing board, I used scrapped. Scrap is the verb, and in the context it means to abandon a plan or throw it in the bin. Now you can't really throw a plan in the bin, but you get the idea. It's very commonly used in this context. So that's it. See you very soon.